Roll Tide! And welcome, Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Roll Tide, everyone. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be joined once again by our producer, engineer Todd Robbins, Jerry Kelly. I mean, we got to give Todd his moment. Jerry Kelly back at our Learfield studios. And please welcome in one of the longest tenured members of the Crimson Tide Sports Network, our color analyst, former Alabama quarterback, and now co-host of Crimson Tide Rewind each and every Monday night, Tyler Watts.
Thank y'all for having me on the show. Been a big fan over the years. It's good to be a part of it.
It's good to have number 14 in the house as we will be breaking down what turned out to be a 14-point loss for Alabama. Week 1 against the Florida State Seminoles. And Tyler, it's been a long time since we had a Labor Day where we were talking about a loss for the Crimson Tide on opening week.
Yeah, and I hate to continue to go back to all of the bad stats that I put on the board, but the last opening loss, I believe, was in 2001, which I was a part of against UCLA. So it was a frustrating day, needless to say, over the course down in there at Doak Campbell Stadium. It wasn't how we wanted things to go, but things kind of got off the rail early on there, and you're playing a type of game plan that you didn't anticipate nor wanted to when you're playing from behind, and the wheels just kind of fell off.
Certainly did, as Alabama again falls to Florida State in the season opener. You mentioned things did go to plan early on. Let's talk about that first drive for Alabama. What'd you like about that drive? First of all, covered the whole field and took a lot of time off the clock.
Boy, it was extremely promising, wasn't it? Just the way that Alabama came out. They were running the football. They were physical. They were getting chunk yardage on the ground. Ty Simpson looked very good as far as his decision making. He's getting rid of the ball quickly. Converted a couple of third downs, a couple of fourth downs, and we're able to punch it in there to go up 7-0. You're thinking at that point, wow, this is kind of the Alabama of old. Physical up front, dominating the line of scrimmage is exactly what they wanted to hang their identity on this season. And then the second possession, you move the ball a little bit, but you stall inside of Florida State territory and don't come away with points. And, at that point, then all of a sudden you go down 14, or was it 17-7 real quick, and you're playing catch-up, and that's when they kind of got out of the rhythm of what they really wanted to do, because the number of possessions was really limited because the defense really had no answers.
So with that, Alabama didn't necessarily have the balance you wanted to have because, again, that first drive ran the ball really well.
Yeah, they did. And, you had a lot of weapons on the perimeter that you were able to distribute the ball to evenly. You had Rodden Williams involved. You had Isaiah Horton involved. Jeremy Bernard was involved. You even got your tight ends in there. And you're rotating your backs like you would want to. But then when you go down the way that they did, all of a sudden things change. We knew the rain was coming. It got sloppy there for a minute right before halftime. And if you're not down 17-7, you're probably taking some points on a couple of those possessions and kicking field goals. But it was also the mental mistakes. We saw 2nd and 4 or 5. You have a negative play, then you get a false start, then you take a sack, and all of a sudden you're kicking a 50-something yard field goal instead of a 35-yard field goal. And if you're only down 17-10 at that point, how does it look different? How does the way that you address the remainder of the game and your possessions, being willing to take points versus going for some of those fourth and mediums, how does that play out? It very easily could have been a different game had you been able to put more points on the board on some of those early possessions.
Fortunately, the Crimson Tide again fall 31-17 to Florida State in Week 1. The good news is it is Week 1. There's still a lot of season to play, and this is a very different era of college football now in this 12-team playoff.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing that all of us have to be able to just take a deep breath and not overreact any simple way, because this is a couple of plays here or there, and this is a completely different ballgame. It didn't work out, but you have to go back, not to the drawing board, not throw everything out, but just fine-tune and get better in a couple of situations that if you're able to take advantage of what Florida State's giving you, take advantage of the opportunities that you have, that game could be completely different. And Florida State plays a lot different also when it's a one-possession game because they're feeling the pressure. And your future opponents is going to be the same way. Everybody plays a whole lot more relaxed when they're up multiple possessions as opposed to one. It's not the end of the world, but you have to address your missed opportunities and make sure that you're improving in the fundamentals of every single snap, because there was a lot of mistakes made between the years as well as physically. You have to find a way to overcome those.
Over the next hour, we're going to talk all about it here at Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills, and we invite your questions as well. Make sure you follow us on Twitter or X at UA_CTSN. We will be taking all questions off of social media. Again, follow us at UA_CTSN. We will be taking your questions and taking a look at Alabama against Florida State, plus looking ahead to Week 2, coming up on Saturday, Alabama against ULM. We're just getting started with Crimson Tide Rewind. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Jay Lindsey, excuse me. Not Lewis. Bama puts Cuevas and Lindsey to the left side. Young in the backfield. Play clock at 2. Bama gets the snap, hands it off. No. Scrambling. Simpson fires right side. Cuevas caught. Touchdown, Alabama.
That was Chris Stewart on the call of that touchdown that capped that first drive of the game for Alabama at Florida State. Make sure you keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank. Available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. Well, Tyler Watts, we talked all offseason long about the quarterback competition between Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, Keelan Russell. It was announced, I believe, after the first scrimmage that Ty Simpson had the job. He made his first career start. Just your assessment of Alabama's starting quarterback.
I thought that he played well. Honestly, I don't believe that Alabama came into this game wanting to throw the ball 40-something times, but they were forced to do that. But I thought that he played good enough. He protected the football. He didn't force it into bad situations. He gave his players opportunities to make catches. Yeah, there was a couple of misses that he had that were not egregious, but they were just, maybe a yard behind the receiver that would have resulted in a reception or a touchdown or a first down. But I thought that he played good enough to win the football game. Just didn't have the supporting cast around him that really stepped it up. It was uncharacteristic, the number of drops that we had. And some of your more high-profile players really did not have as big of an impact as you were hoping that they would.
And Ty was having to scramble a lot, too, especially in the second half. Seemed like he was on the run a lot. What kind of pass rush was he facing from FSU?
Well, it's two things that were going on there. A couple of twisting games that were taking place up front, but amongst the defensive linemen that the offensive line struggled a little bit with. But, however, I think where Alabama was on the scoreboard dictated a lot of that from the standpoint of Florida State did not necessarily have to respect the run the way they were early on because they were ahead so much. That puts a lot of pressure on your offensive line, your quarterback, when the defensive front knows that you're about to throw the football. They can pin their ears back and really get after you, play a lot of games up front without the fear of that running rush attack. I think Alabama only had 39 yards or so of rushing in the second half. So that element of their game had gone away because of you're down 2 scores, you're trying to maximize the clock, and you're willing to push the ball through the air more so because an incomplete pass stops the ball and potentially gives you an extra possession or 2.
2 touchdowns, no interceptions for Ty Simpson. Again, 23 of 43 passing, 254 yards passing through the air in this ball game. And again, as the quarterback, everything's magnified. There's different decisions he makes during the game. How does Alabama make sure his confidence stays high in what he's trying to do going into this week?
Well, that's the biggest thing. And, the game tape does not lie. You have to be honest with what you see with your own 2 eyes and your performance. And there's a lot that's desired that you can improve upon. It's going to be a lot of things that when they put the film on yesterday that they're like, oh man, we had an opportunity here, and here. But there's also some positive things that took place as well, and you have to make sure that you're emphasizing those to let guys know that, hey, we're not far off. We just have to clean up X, Y, and Z, and we're in a different situation.
Crimson Tide again fall on Saturday, 31-17 at Florida State. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Simpson getting the snap. Has time. Plenty of time. Fires. Catches made across the middle. Bernard changes his direction. Goes back to the far sideline. 50. Across midfield to the 45-yard line of FSU. A big play for Alabama. Jeremy Bernard on the receiving end of the strike from Ty Simpson.
J&J Apparel is your trusted source for Bama gear. New Alabama hats, t-shirts, polos arriving daily. Visit online at jnjapparel.net or shop their retail store at 1926 University Boulevard in downtown Tuscaloosa. RTR with J&J. Just heard that highlight. Chris Stewart on the call for a Ty Simpson to Jeremy Bernard pass, and Jeremy Bernard, top receiver in the game for Alabama. 8 catches, 146 yards in this ball game, and he was even brought up today by Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator, at the press conference saying, if you want to see how we need to play, just look at what Jeremy Bernard's doing.
Yeah, and I was thinking that on the way home after the ball game. I would put the game film on for everybody and say, y'all watch number 5. This is how you play the football game. Obviously, he is selfless in what he does for other players with his ability to block on a lot of those short screens. He was responsible directly for several of the short passes becoming 15, 20-yard gains through his effort and just what he does away from the football. But he's a dude you can depend on. And as a result, Ty Simpson in the quarterback room, they trust him because, A, he's going to be out there on the field. And we saw even one time, he caught a little cramp, had to come off. He rehydrated. It didn't take him any time before he was right back out there trying to do his best to will that football team to win. So that's the type of effort that you need from everybody. It's a selflessness of just putting the team first and getting out there and getting after it.
Really good to see that for Jeremy Bernard. You mentioned he had a little cramp at one point in the ball game. Isaiah Horton, like 1 catch, 6 yards. He was a little dinged up in that ball game. Then obviously Ryan Williams leaves with a concussion. So we were talking about Alabama's depth at the running back position really leading into this game, but now depth at the wide receiver position a bit of a concern moving forward.
Well, Rico Scott had an opportunity to come in as well as Jalen Hill. You saw Derek Meadows in there. Jalen Mbakwe contributed a little bit. So they have guys that can get the job done. I'm not concerned about the depth so much, and we don't know what the status of Ryan Williams is moving forward, but it's probably best to go ahead and take a precautious angle as far as he goes and not press him because we don't necessarily need him immediately, although he had two drops in that game then, and both of them were costly. They were pivotal downs, and even on the one where he got knocked out, that's a ball that should have been caught, and I thought had he caught it, he had an opportunity to split the safeties and potentially make that a huge game. But the younger guys are going to get opportunities, and I think that there's enough talent in that room that you're not necessarily going to miss a huge beat, especially from the standpoint of some of your bigger playmakers in the wide receiver room. Isaiah Horton and Williams didn't necessarily have good games.
Was that more due to the Florida State secondary or just how they were approaching things?
Well, obviously with Isaiah Horton, him going down with an injury and came back in the second half, but really wasn't 100% and came back out off from the field. It's a combination of both. I think that Florida State frustrated us a little bit, but we had plenty of cushion and opportunities to move the ball through the air, and I thought that we were able to do that. But it's just you have to finish those drives. We went inside the Florida State territory multiple times and walked away with no points, and that's something. Finishing the drive with some sort of kick is paramount moving forward.
Paramount moving forward. Also making sure Alabama takes care of as few penalties as possible. 8 penalties for 70 yards in this ball game, and still just it's not one main issue, it seems, just little things kept piling up during the game.
And the timing was horrible on a couple of those. Defensively, we had, 2 penalties that extended drives when you're about to make Florida State punt, and they turned both of those into scoring opportunities for the Seminoles. That was costly. Offensively, getting down inside close to the 30-yard line, then having to back up and push yourself out of field goal range opportunity, having to go for it on 4th down. Those are the mental parts that we're talking about that you have to be locked in and focused so that you're giving yourself a chance to make a play that presents itself and putting yourself in an opportunity to put points on the board.
So again, a tough afternoon for the Crimson Tide, falling 31-17 to Florida State on Saturday. But coming up, it's a new week, and if you're coming to Tuscaloosa for the ULM game coming up this Saturday, make sure you join us at Vector Security Champions Lane. It is the best pregame fan fest in the country. Our live radio broadcast will get things started 3 hours before kickoff, followed by a free pregame concert. We'll also have the early games on the largest outdoor LED screens in Tuscaloosa, plus autograph signings from UA baseball players this week, food trucks, and of course, ice-cold beer in Legends Lounge, where there is never a cover charge. Visit championslane.com each week for more details. We've been talking about the offense. We'll talk more about the defense for Alabama when we return. This is Crimson Tide Rewind, and this is Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Another low line drive, fair catch called for it, hit it, him, and Bama's got it. Bama's got the football as Lucas called for a fair catch. The ball hit at the 46, it bounced right into him, back to a Bama player who picks it up. A nice job on the part of Cam Calhoun to recover that one, and Alabama's got it right around midfield. A huge break there for the Crimson Tide.
Hey, if you'd like to join us on the show, submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. Brought to you by AL.com, Alabama's largest news site with daily coverage of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Roger Hoover and Tyler Watts back with you from Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills. And Tyler, so far we've been talking mostly about Alabama's offense. So looking at the defense for the Crimson Tide, you warned us kind of pregame. There's going to be a lot of eye candy from a Gus Malzahn offense. And we certainly saw some things that maybe were familiar from his teams before at Auburn, but what did you see mostly on Saturday from the Seminoles on offense?
It's the most frustrating thing because when you're watching it from afar, it looks so simple to defend. You just got to go in motion, and he's either going to hand it off to him, hand it off to his running back, or he's going to keep it, right? 3 options. However, it is so difficult because the offensive line does such a nice job of getting a hat on a hat, and they pull, and they're constantly so much misdirection going up front. You have a tight end going across the formation one way, and then you have a guard and a tackle pulling back the opposite way. So there's people going everywhere, and it's very easily for defenders to lose sight of where the ball is. But they're not supposed to be watching the ball. You're supposed to be keying in on your target. What is your guy telling you to do? And then you react to it. And you heard Coach DeBoer talk at halftime going in about we're not attacking. We're not attacking. We're seeing what we have put on film, but we're not attacking this offensive unit. And in any sort of option style offensive unit, penetration is the biggest nightmare for an offensive coordinator because it disrupts everything. It's all about timing, and when you allow those offensive linemen to create space up front, it makes life simple for the opposing quarterback to make his decision on what he's going to do, whether it's to give, pull, or throw the football off of that. But this was a game plan that was frustrating from the standpoint it really wasn't outside of the one big pass that Castellanos had to Squirrel White. There were really no deep threats. They weren't going to run past us, and that was only a one-off. They did all their damage on first and second down, staying ahead of the chain, setting up third and short situations, and it was just awfully difficult in the first half for our defense to get off the field.
Yeah, the Seminoles averaged 6 yards per play throughout this ball game, and on the ground 4.7 yards per play. And then what's the challenge? You mentioned all the misdirection, but Alabama had to defend so much laterally, it seemed like, all throughout Saturday's game.
You're really dependent on your secondary coming up and run support, but you're fearful of what play action comes off of that. So you want to try to keep them back, but when you can't defend with just 6 men in the box, you have to start getting a little bit more aggressive with your run support and run the alley lanes to help out. And there were times, especially in the second half, where it was like a light flip switched, and the defense really started becoming aggressive and forced several 3-and-outs on Florida State's and several punting opportunities. Unfortunately, the offense was not able to take that advantageous field position or the punt and do anything with it.
Defensively for Alabama, who brought the energy on Saturday?
Who brought it? I didn't see anybody, and that's what's a little bit concerning. It's somebody has to step up on that side and really kind of take on that leadership role, and it's fine if it's 4 or 5 of them, but there has to be a little bit higher standard on that end and accountability to one another, and that's really what I want to see, in this week's game is just more energy, more excitement, more enthusiasm, more hitting each other on the helmets after big plays, and just having fun out there, because it was almost like they were a little shell-shocked and just kind of walking around going through the motions, and you just want to see more of that juice, as they talk about, on that side of the ball, because playing defense is all about aggressiveness and enthusiasm and everyone just going 90-0.
Well, especially that gets magnified on the road, right?
It is, and you think about it, over the last 2 years, the LSU is really the only time outside of Wisconsin that we have gone on the road and played well. It's been a challenge for us during Coach DeBoer's tenure, and you have to create your own energy on the sideline, and it always is the easiest place to start is on that defensive unit, because those are guys that, man, it takes one dude making a good play for it to be a negative for an offense. And while you want everyone swarming and getting after it, it just takes one. And you just need that enthusiasm, and then it trickles down to the sideline and throughout the rest of your team.
Deontay Lawson was the top tackler for the Crimson Tide. 6 tackles by him, as well as Keon Sabb and Justin Jefferson. 5 from Bray Hubbard in this ballgame. The Crimson Tide get 3 tackles for a loss, 1 sack in this ballgame. That was also by Keon Sabb, again, member of the secondary, coming up and providing pressure from the secondary.
And it was a much more aggressive look on that play. We put everybody at the line of scrimmage. We're playing man. I think it was a 3rd and 10 situation. We were off the ball, though, so you weren't going to get beat on a quick hitter. and it was just max pressure. And there is nothing wrong with doing that and challenging a quarterback to beat you through the air.
Tommy Castellanos only had to complete 9 passes in this game.
Yeah, and that's frustrating. He was in his comfort zone because of where they were down in distance throughout the course of the game. We never really backed him up and forced him to press the ball and read defense and push the ball down the field. He made a couple of throws early on, but it was off of the play action. And so we never got him out of his comfort zone, and that was a huge difference.
Seminoles pick up the win again, 31-17. The final score against Crimson Tide this past Saturday in Tallahassee. And a lot of you are probably here because Baumhower's is your big game headquarters this fall for the 2025 football season. Baumhower's has been voted best wings in Alabama and the #1 sports-themed restaurant in the state of Alabama. And, of course, they're featuring their fan favorites this fall that include the Ragin' Cajun Gooey Fries, Go Fish, the Gooey Char-Grilled Chicken Sandwich, and their scratch-made Cabo Wabo Tequila Margaritas. All of you football fans, kick off your season coming up in legendary fashion and make Baumhower's Victory Grill your big game headquarters all season long. We'll continue breaking down the Crimson Tide and the Seminoles. Look ahead to Alabama against ULM on Saturday in just a few moments. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Castellanos will walk to the line of scrimmage to Audible. Gets back. He'll roll to the left. Trying to get to the edge. Can't. He's brought down. Keon Sam read it perfectly. Able to bring him down back around the 20-yard line. Officially the 21. Sack or a quarterback run. Regardless, he goes to the turf, and Bama forces the FSU punt.
You can be part of tonight's Crimson Tide Rewind. Just submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN. Brought to you by AL.com, Alabama's largest news site with daily coverage of the Crimson Tide. So Alabama drops the season opener on Saturday to Florida State. And Tyler, whether it's the season opener or whenever a loss happens, it's natural for fans to react like sky's falling into the world type stuff.
Chicken Little.
Yeah, exactly. So how does this team kind of block all that out and make sure they stick to the process they had going into the season? Because again, you could not have a more positive preseason camp, it seemed like, than what we just had the last few weeks in Tuscaloosa.
Well, we didn't turn the football over. That's not a concern. You can clean up the mental mistakes and the focus and locking in. That's just effort right there, and just that mental concentration that you need. But when you see a perceived lack of effort in some cases, perceived, probably wasn't there, but those are things that are embarrassing to a player. And when they see themselves not make a play, it changes their effort moving forward. I think they're really going to be focused in on attention to detail throughout the course of the week and just becoming more aggressive. I think that's going to be a key point of emphasis throughout the course of the week, and you're going to see some reckless abandonment on that defensive side moving forward.
And even with the defense, there was heavy rotation in this ballgame. We saw a lot of true freshmen, maybe some guys we didn't even expect to play as large of a role. They got their first snaps in an Alabama jersey. Do you expect more of that to continue?
Well, and without having Tim Keenan, you have to develop that depth, and yeah, I think that you're going to. And I saw some flashes. Landon Simmons came in, a true freshman on the defensive front. He was able to get into the backfield a couple times, make a play. So I think that you have to continue to bring those guys on and put them in situations and say, listen, we need everybody, because that is truly, it's more like an NFL roster where if you're on this team, you're on the sideline dressed out, you have to be able to help us win a football game. You might only get 2 or 3 plays, but when you go in there, go crazy.
Go crazy. Play with reckless abandonment. And as you kind of said a moment ago, just have fun, too. Take the stress away from it.
That's the biggest thing, and especially on the defensive side. And guys making plays, it's easy to rah-rah and get behind that and get excited, but you have to make some plays. But when you do, man, it just needs to be a lot of jumping around, because it's an energy that snowballs. It creates that confidence. It increases the next guy going out there making a play, and it really brings the team closer together.
And thinking as well about Alabama's defense, will we see an offense similar to what FSU ran much coming up this year? Or is
you're probably going to have at least 2 or 3 more, I would assume, that are going to give you some different looks. And anyone with a mobile quarterback is going to try to take advantage of a couple of situations that Florida State was able to do. I mean, you go back to last year, Vanderbilt gave us fits, Oklahoma gave us fits with a lot of the same concepts. So if you have, but that's unique, because you have to have a quarterback that is capable and that you're willing to put in harm's way to be able to do some of those things, because if you catch a wrong hit, all of a sudden you could be out a guy.
And that's certainly
risk-reward.
Yeah, absolutely. Risk-reward coming up for the Crimson Tide. So, again, Alabama falling to Florida State, but next up is ULM. And how nice is it to have the Crimson Tide at home at Saban Field, Bryant-Denny Stadium, the next 2 weeks?
Well, it's important, and it's important for the fans to put this one behind, because win or loss, there's going to be plenty of things that we needed to improve on and needed to be addressed moving forward to become a better football team. So it being the first game of the year, it's a bad taste in your mouth. You want to get it out. The Alabama fan needs to come out and support this football team and understand it's a long season. They are going to get better. They're going to be competitive in every single game. They're going to continue to work to improve on where they messed up. And those missed opportunities, you start taking advantage of those, these games start going your way.
Crimson Tide lost on opening week, but several teams around the Southeastern Conference, including the nation's #1 ranked team, can say the same thing. The Texas Longhorns. We'll talk about SEC in week 1 when we return. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
2nd and 7, we'll call it. Williams wide to the left, all alone this time. Simpson waiting on the snap, gets it, swings it out quickly to Cuevas. Tied in with a grab, first down more. Cuevas breaks a tackle, dragging people inside the 35 to the 34-yard line. Another bank first down for the Crimson Tide.
Always love getting the tight end involved in the passing attacks, and so far, Josh Cuevas, good option for Ty Simpson.
He does a great job coming from formation, getting out in the routes. He understands space. He understands how to set people up, and he's got really good hands. There was a time or two his feet came out from under him. He was unable to secure a pass. However, he's such a weapon. Anytime you can utilize that big body against the safeties and the linebackers because of the speed that he possesses, you're able to take advantage of a lot of really favorable looks that defenses will give you.
Crimson Tide falling in week #1 to Florida State. We've been talking about that here on Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. But again, Alabama not the only SEC team that suffered a defeat this past Saturday. All you have to do is look to the nation's #1 ranked team. The Texas Longhorns went to Columbus, and Ohio State picks up the win 14-7 against Texas. I know we were kind of keeping up with that as we were on the air for our pregame show, but are you surprised that Texas Arch Manning game 1, 7 points in that game?
Steve Sarkisian is known as such a good coordinator, and he does a phenomenal job. I would have thought that he would be able to diagnose and find big play opportunities against that defense to generate more than just 7 points. So very pedestrian type day for Arch Manning. But the flip side of that, hey, listen, Ohio State and Texas may have two really, really good defenses.
And these are easily two teams that we could see and most likely we'll see still in the playoff mix down the road.
Yeah, 2 top 5 teams. It was a 1-possession game on the road. Early kickoff. That's a tough one right there. It was an exciting week of football, though, with a lot of big names, high-ranked football teams competing against each other. And they didn't disappoint. They put on some really good shows.
Then how about the top 10 showdown down at Clemson's version of Death Valley? The Clemson Tigers falling to the LSU Tigers 17-10. Brian Kelly finally starts the season with a victory.
Very impressed with the improvement that the LSU defense put on display versus Clemson. Clemson was rolling early on. As they got out to that lead, you knew that the LSU offense would find ways to put points on the board. Garrett Nussmeier obviously looks really good, but that defensive unit for LSU has come a long way from where they ended the 2024 campaign.
Some other games were more blowouts. You had Missouri picking up the win 61-6 over Central Arkansas. The Friday night game, it was the Auburn Tigers going on the road to Waco, Texas against Baylor, and it's Auburn picking up the victory in that ball game. What'd you see from the Tigers with someone we've seen before? Jackson Arnold played for Oklahoma, beat Alabama last year. Now he's wearing orange and blue.
They did a really good job of dominating the line of scrimmage on both sides, and they ran the football effectively. Didn't put up tons of numbers through the air. However, that running attack, it didn't matter if it was 3rd and 8 or 9. They were still finding ways for Jackson Arnold to be able to scramble around and move the chains to keep drives going.
Florida, Oklahoma, Texas A&M all winning big in their ball games. Ole Miss 63 points as they break in a new starting quarterback there. And then speaking of new quarterbacks, Tennessee had Joey Aguilar. No spring practice for him, playing musical chairs with Nico Iamaleava. 45 points for the Vols against Syracuse and Atlanta.
Yeah, a couple of big plays for Tennessee and a couple of turnovers for Syracuse that Tennessee was able to capitalize on.
Mississippi State went to Hattiesburg, picked up the win.
tough place to go, right? And you're always scratching your head going, why is an SEC team going to Southern Miss, in-state deal? However, Jeff Levy there getting the win. That's big for Mississippi State.
Kentucky a winner over Toledo. Arkansas topped Alabama A&M. Vanderbilt 45-3 over Charleston Southern. Then a game I actually got to watch all of yesterday. South Carolina impressive at times against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, their defense looked really good. Lenore Sellers a little slow out of the chute after that first drive that they go right down the field and score, but they were able to make things happen. Special teams also contributed with a punt return for a touchdown, so a good start for the Carolina.
That's week 1 in the Southeastern Conference. We'll be doing that each and every week here on Crimson Tide Rewind, kind of taking a look at other SEC teams and what's coming up over the next few weeks. For the Crimson Tide, the next opponent, the ULM Warhawks. More on that when we return. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Simpson rolls, throws it right side. Scott breaks a tackle at the 5, gets to the pylon. Touchdown, Alabama. Rico Scott made the catch from Simpson at the 5, broke a tackle, and just willed his way to the end zone to give Alabama another touchdown and make it a 24-16 ball game at the moment.
You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Roger Hoover and Tyler Watts, and I was asking you about players that brought energy on defense. On offense, number 11, one of those guys, Rico Scott. Great to see him grab a touchdown for Alabama.
Look, he's a guy that can contribute. He really does a good job in his route running. He's able to stretch the field vertically as well. It was another time when they had a 2-safety look. He split them. Ball was thrown just a hair behind him, or he would have had his second touchdown catch of the day.
For the Crimson Tide, Alabama will be home coming up on Saturday. 6:45 will be the start time against ULM. Our radio airtime across the network will be 3:30, and that'll be starting with our coverage outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium at Vector Security Champions Lane. And one of the things for Alabama to look out for, Tyler, on offense, Ty Simpson mentioned good first drive for the Crimson Tide against Florida State, but he felt like at times the offense got a little complacent after that. How do you avoid complacency in a game like this against ULM?
Well, the biggest thing is winning first down, and that's regardless of who your opponent is. You want to get ahead of the chains and set yourself up to be multiple in what you call on second or third down, and close enough to be able to legitimately convert that, not allow the defense to dictate terms on third and long situations. So that's the mental focus that we talked about that for years and years has kind of been the benchmark at the University of Alabama. And it's not that it's not anymore. It just has to be a point of emphasis on that of nameless opponent. It's all about us.
And it starts coming up this week, Alabama against ULM. So the Crimson Tide will try to pick up their first victory of the season. ULM did start its season with a win last Thursday, 29-0 over St. Francis, as the Crimson Tide will take on a team that, of course, we have seen before. Notably, ULM got the win against Alabama in 2007. Last time we played, complete blowout for the Crimson Tide back in 2022. And hopefully this version a lot more like the 2022 version.
It is. It needs to be a great atmosphere there at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and that's what the fans can control. The players will feed off of that and get back into a rhythm of getting comfortable, having a lot of juice and enthusiasm on the sideline, taking it out on the field, and hopefully we'll come away with a victory.
Crimson Tide and the Warhawks coming up on Saturday. More on that, plus some final thoughts on our first edition of Crimson Tide Rewind this season. We're live at Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Week 1 is done. We're moving on to week 2 for Alabama football. What's on tap next for Bama? Brought to you by Coors Light. Crimson Tide fans, choose to chill with an ice-cold Coors Light. Well, next up, Alabama against ULM coming up on Saturday. Before that, we have a lot of programming here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Starting tomorrow afternoon with Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, streaming live at 2 p.m. Central on all CTSN social media platforms at UA_CTSN. Easy way to watch CTSN on YouTube. Just hit subscribe. It'll come right to you on YouTube. And then coming up on Wednesday, Hey Coach and the Kalen DeBoer Show, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Tuscaloosa with Coach DeBoer at Baumhower's Victory Grille along with Chris Stewart. Another edition of Crimson Drive Thursday as well. And then again, our radio airtime will be 3:30 for the 6:45 kickoff against ULM. Under the lights, Tyler Watts, we cannot wait to get back to Saban Field.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun day, and obviously it's always good to be in Tuscaloosa playing, but you know, we talked about it over and over. Just the fans need to do their job. Players need to take the right approach this week and get back on the winning track.
And we talked before about not overreacting too much to week one. Can that be the same too even in week two, even if it is a sizable win for Alabama?
There's plenty that will still need to be improved upon, and that's the focus, is just becoming a better football team every time that you go out onto the field. September, you're still trying to learn things. You're trying to get into finding your identity. October, obviously, it all starts once we tee it up versus Georgia in Athens. That's where we'll kind of know what kind of season we're going to have and how we stack up against competition.
And again, there are some injuries for the Crimson Tide getting ready for this week. We talked before about Ryan Williams with a concussion, still dealing day-to-day with those symptoms. Tim Keenan III still unlikely over the next few weeks, as well as Jan Miller. Jaden Roberts was able to practice some, was fully cleared and ready to go, did not appear for the Crimson Tide this past Saturday. So again, there are still going to be some younger players who may get some of their most meaningful snaps in their Alabama careers, or their first snaps just overall in their college careers this Saturday.
And listen, that's something that every football team has to deal with. As soon as you put those pads on and go out and start practicing, everyone has a mash unit that is just trying to piecemeal guys together and get them back out on the field. Everyone's beat up and banged up and bruised. You just have to fight through it because everybody's going through it.
What did you see out of Alabama's running backs playing without Jan Miller?
I loved some of the spark that some of the younger guys were able to get. Daniel Hill obviously contributed a good bit. Kevin Riley, though, was really the most impressive one out of the true freshman. And so hopefully that's something you can continue to see improvement from him as he gets a larger role of carries moving forward.
And we didn't talk about the offensive line as much. How about that group as they start to play together again? We are expecting to see Jaden Roberts at some point this season, but we knew Cam Dewberry and Gina Vandermark would be in the mix.
And the biggest thing there is they did a lot of positive things as well with their ability to control the line of scrimmage, get up to the second level, open up the running lanes, and they had success early on. Got out of your game plan, you're kind of forced away from that, but there's some things that you can continue to build on and improve upon.
Crimson Tide and ULM again coming up on Saturday. 3:30 will be our airtime all across the network for the Crimson Tide and the ULM Warhawks, game number 2. And then, Tyler, before you know it, Wisconsin is after that, an 11 a.m. kickoff. Feels like kind of like last year when we were on the road in Madison.
That's exactly what it was. But, it's a lot of good games that day. We got the 11 o'clock. It doesn't matter when you play. You're going to be playing all over the spectrum every single year. It's about doing what you need to do to prepare yourself for whatever the start time is. And then we got to remember this football team, they practice in the morning. They ought to be up and ready to go. It's a struggle for most college kids, but these guys, that's when they're out there on the field getting after it. So, look, it's about taking care of this week, taking care of Wisconsin, and now we're in the thick of it.
We're going to have a late night coming up this weekend. Early start against Wisconsin. Going to be fun to be in Tuscaloosa the next couple of weeks. And Tyler Watts, it is going to be fun to be with you in Vestavia Hills each and every Monday night for Crimson Tide Rewind. Thank you so much for being part of this part of the Crimson Tide Sports Network, and we can't wait to have you each and every week right here.
It's fun to be a part of it. Like I said, I've loved this show for years, and it is good to finally have an opportunity to sit and spend more time with you, Roger.
Absolutely. That is former Crimson Tide quarterback Tyler Watts. I am Roger Hoover. So many people to thank, starting with our producer and engineer here on site at Baumhower's, Todd Robbins, doing a great job each and every week. Also, Jerry Kelly, Mason Sapp back at our Learfield studios. We appreciate all of them. If you missed any portion of tonight's show, you can always catch it on demand on the Alabama Insider Podcast. You can download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And speaking of that Alabama Insider Podcast, all of our interviews that we have coming up this week, even some of the ones last week previewing Alabama and Florida State, all the interviews we have from Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, can be found right there. Plus, a full video replay of this show will be available on our CTSN YouTube page coming up tomorrow as well. That'll be included on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, streaming live again 2 p.m. Central, Tuesday and Thursday each and every week to get you ready for Crimson Tide football. And this week, it's Alabama against the ULM Warhawks at Saban Field, Bryant-Denny Stadium. 6:45 the start time for the game, 3:30 our airtime on the network. Again, that does it for Crimson Tide Rewind from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. For Jerry Kelly, Mason Staff back at our Learfield studios, our engineer Todd Robbins, and Tyler Watts, I'm Roger Hoover saying thank you for listening and roll Tide.